Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here, and today I want to talk to you about Rory McIlroy's recent back injury. And specifically, I want to talk to you about what you're missing about it. Because there's a few things that are true when it comes to Rory. First, his swing is as biomechanically sound as it gets. There's no question about that, and I've got different breakdowns talking about that. Rory has also been under an increasing amount of stress over the last several months, year and a half, with the live golf situation, his feud with Phil, with Greg Norman, his problems with Jay Monahan, and how he's running the tour. So there's a lot of stress going on here. And how he allegedly got the injury was a bodyweight squat. Now, Rory is known to be an avid exerciser. He squats hundreds of pounds, he deadlifts hundreds of pounds, he swings a golf club 120 plus miles an hour. So a bodyweight squat shouldn't be an amount of stress that is going to cause him an injury, unless he's facing some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. The first thing I want to cover with you guys today is what we typically blame for injuries, which is physical stress, right? No matter what the tissue is, whether it's muscle, ligament, tendon, bone, they have a certain amount of stress they can take. Let's say that's here. And if you go above that level, that's when you get damage to that tissue. Then you're stuck with days, weeks, months of recovery time, whatever it is. But as I mentioned previously, Rory talked about how his back actually went into spasm during a bodyweight squat. And knowing what we know about Rory, that just shouldn't be enough stress to cause damage to any tissue, not physically. Now, what I want to direct your attention to is psychological stress and how that plays into injury. And I know a lot of people hear that and you think, all right, here we go with this Eastern medicine touchy-feely guy. But let me start with some scientific research to help kind of bring you on to some of the stuff I'm talking about. In this first article I'm going to direct your attention to, it's looking at psychological factors when it comes to back pain. And it says if you take groups of people, that you're going to find that those with psychological stressors are more likely to have back injury. And again, talking about what we've seen from Live Golf and the PGA Tour over the last several months, I would certainly say Rory meets some of those criteria. In the second article, it mentions fear and depression. Now, I'm not alleging Rory's scared or depressed about anything, but it's just another piece of fuel saying that our psychological state and our emotional function can play into injuries. And there's a lot of reasons for that I'm not going to cover in this video, but if you're interested in any of them, leave them in a comment below and I'll get to you. This third article I'm going to reference and show you is stating that state anxiety is tied to low back pain. So they're talking about state versus trait, which the simple differentiation you can look at with that is state anxiety is tied to anxiety of a specific situation. So a problem with golf specifically, and then anxiety and stress around that activity is what's going to increase that risk of back pain, as opposed to just a general anxiety overall. And again, I think we can agree that there's been a lot of stressful situations tied to Rory and specific to golf over these last several months or year. Now that we've covered the more scientific part, let me just give you some anecdotes from someone myself who treats primarily athletes. Now, typically these are golfers and tennis players, but a lot of times I'll treat CrossFitters, weightlifters, runners, really anyone who's active. So over the last 5 years, let's say, the amount of times I've had someone go into a complete and total back spasm during their specific competition, I can probably count on one hand. So whether they were swinging a golf club at the time or lifting a weight at the time, that is not generally the feedback I've gotten from athletes going into spasm. It's typically more like this, where in Rory's situation, where a relatively innocuous movement or exercise causes this massive spasm and dysfunction. So everything from a client who deadlifts about 550 pounds and went into back spasm rolling over in bed, or another client who was both a runner, weightlifter, exerciser, very strong woman who went into back spasm putting out the dog's bowl in the morning. I've had it with clients talking about setting up their Christmas tree. So again, in these situations, it doesn't make sense to blame the physical stressor of the situation because it's so much lower than what they've already shown they can handle. So that's when you need to be looking into that overall stress emotional environment and whether that's potentially triggering an injury. Because you have to know what the cause is if you want to treat it effectively. The last thing I want to get into is why the hell any of this even matters. Because you could just say he's got a back injury, he should rest up, recover, and kind of go back and do his thing. And I would agree with you. But the problem is, especially with professional athletes, anytime there's an injury, anything that interrupts the ability to compete, a lot of times there's this search for answers. And sometimes people go down a lot of wrong paths. If you agree with a lot of the stuff I'm saying, or even if you don't agree with it, but you understand where I'm coming from, then Rory's problem isn't a physical one. So if the solution he has prescribed is a bunch of particular stretches or different exercises or, God forbid, a swing change, then he's going to be getting led down this wrong path. He's going to both be taking time away from addressing the actual problem, and he's going to start tweaking and changing stuff he doesn't need to. I really hope he has someone on his team that understands this because I've seen athletes go a lot of really weird ways after this. Now, you'll recall with Tiger's whole situation, activate the glutes, right? Tiger had that press conference about activating the glutes, basically went nowhere and then ended up with back surgery. And in my opinion, it was because he was chasing a bunch of stuff that wasn't actually his problem. So I hope Rory has someone really qualified that can point some of this stuff out and they can actually chase a treatment solution that makes sense. I'm going to sign off today by telling all of you that if you have back pain that doesn't match up to physical symptoms in the way that Rory does and you're trying to figure out what to do about them, let me know. Leave any questions you have in the comments, and I'm happy to help um, guide you to that. I know I had my own kind of years of back pain problems, and I would not have gotten over them if I didn't understand these factors and didn't have someone teach them to me. So appreciate you hanging out. Good luck to Rory. Hope we see him back out there healthy and competing in the Ryder Cup soon.